Hello and welcome back to your mat. The next prop we're going to work on or use today is our blocks. I love blocks, and I especially love these cork blocks. I find that they, because they have a textured surface, they're a little bit more grippy on my mat. Because they're heavy and dense, they don't buckle when I'm using them. So I tend to use them to bring the floor closer up to me. I tend to use them to support me when I'm doing certain poses. And I just want us to remember that blocks are tools that help equalize the practice for all of us. So let's play a little bit with vinyasa with the blocks. This particular vinyasa that I'll do is really great if you happen to have sore wrists. So sometimes when we're downward facing dog, our wrist, I'm going to see the best way to show this angle. We have a lot of weight in our hands, and a lot of weight ends up dumping into the wrist. So we're putting a lot of weight on our hands when our hands are basically in this angle. And for some of us with carpal tunnel, weak wrists, just weak from whatever reasons, carpal tunnel syndrome, weak wrists, arthritis, anything like that, sometimes putting that kind of pressure on our hands in down dog doesn't feel great. So what you can opt to do is try using blocks instead. There's a couple reasons why blocks are helpful, especially if you're practicing in a bigger body and you have weight through the midsection. It makes that dreaded step your right foot forward in between your hands move a lot simpler because it creates space. So let's give it a try. We'll do a short vinyasa with the blocks. And what I like to do is bring the blocks pretty much to the edge of my mat. I always like to go bigger in my poses. Those of you who are practice a lot of vinyasa sometimes like to be a little more narrow. I'm going to invite you to go a little bit more bigger and just see what happens with the stability and feeling in the shoulders. So I like to start all my practices with a little bit of cat-cow. So taking the hands out as wide as the blocks, wrapping your fingertips around the blocks. You'll notice now the angle of the wrist changes and becomes broader or wider, bigger angle, which helps create a little less pressure in the wrist as opposed to being here. Right? You see the difference? Where the angle of the wrist is smaller and the opportunity to dump weight into the base of your hand and to actually pretty much flatten out the carpal tunnel is greater. So this is an opportunity here to build strength in your arms, to get your positioning, and to help you facilitate this. And I work with a lot of seniors, so we find that this is a nice alternative for placing your hands flat on the mat. So let's start with a little bit of cat-cow. This is often my favorite thing to do. And then we will either stay here or transition back to down dog. So you can lift your hips up and back, you can press into the blocks. This is one option for working with the blocks. And I'll show you a vinyasa where we're not going to lower down through plank pose all the way to the floor, but you can come forward into plank and you can push back into down dog. So that's a nice alternative for people who may be sore in the shoulders and might not be able to lower down, may not be strong enough to lower down. You can come forward, you can look forward, and you can exhale and you can push back. So one of the great things here is there's more space for when stepping your right foot forward. So now I'm going to go ahead and step my right foot forward. I'll lift my right leg to the sky, bend my knee, and step wide to the side of the mat. Then I'll walk my blocks back and inhale once I find my balance and reach up. Exhale, hands back to the blocks. I'll walk my blocks forward. And then for stability, if your blocks are slipping a little bit like mine are, you can flip your blocks down on the big flat side. That gives you more stability. And then bring your hands and wrap your fingertips around the top of the block. Go ahead and push back to down dog. It still lengthens the angle of the wrist. My hands are sweaty, so make sure you grip the fingertips around the block if you're starting to slide. Let's try the other side. Left leg up nice and high. Step the left leg as wide to the side of the mat as you can. You can adjust your blocks and come back to aligning your blocks with your ankle. Find your balance and then come up. Then when you're ready, return your hands to your block and step your feet forward. You can inhale and reach through the sky. Exhale, hands through heart center. And let's take our blocks back up to the top of the mat. So there's a couple ways that you can play with blocks as you're working through or transitioning through down dog. Just like a little vinyasa there, especially if your wrists are sore. Thank you for being here with me on the mat, and I'll see you in the next video. Namaste.